Hello, and welcome to the mentorDINO YouTube channel. I'm your host, Caitlin Rosier. I am an architect and founder of mentorDINO. Each week, I interview amazing professionals in and around the architecture, engineering, and construction industry to help foster learning, growth, and inspiration in others. Thank you all to our current subscribers, and if you're new, we'd love to have you join our community. So hit subscribe. It really does help others be able to discover this resource. So let's dive in. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Welcome, everybody. I would like to welcome Kayla Barko that's joining me today. She is a project architect at Ashley McGraw Architects. So thank you, Kayla, for taking the time to speak with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and I know we've known each other for many years, but if you don't mind, more introducing yourself to my bigger audience and a little bit about kind of your story and how you got to Ashley McGraw.
Yeah. So I originally went to school at Kent State in Ohio, same college as Caitlin. I did my undergraduate and master's degree there. And after graduation, I headed to Pittsburgh. So I got a job at a small firm in Pittsburgh, and I got to work on a whole different types of projects. So between commercial, higher education, K through 12 education, even things like water treatment plants. So I really got a diverse set of experience on different project types. And I worked at that firm for about 4 years, and then I ended up working at Ashley McGraw Architects, which is based out of Syracuse, New York.
And I know that transition because at Hayes, you were, the traditional in the office, full-time, pre-COVID, you go in every single day of the week. And I believe Hayes, most of their projects are all local, if I remember correctly.
Yes, they are. Everything they do is in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and you're still in Pittsburgh, and Ashley McGraw is up in Syracuse, so you are a fully remote employee. How did that transition happen for you? Like, how did you decide you wanted to go and be 100% remote? How did you decide in Syracuse and looking at that area to find that firm? Like, when you go fully hybrid, you really have the selection of the whole country. So where did you even start when looking to transition?
Yeah, so I think the transition came on as a result of the COVID pandemic and working remotely from home. So when I was working for the firm in Pittsburgh, Hayes Design Group, during COVID, we shifted entirely to being remote, and we were all working from home for about 16 months. So after we deemed it was safe to go back into the office, our firm had everyone come back in 5 days a week. And I was in the office probably about 6 months after that. And I started to realize that maybe the office wasn't the best environment for me. And I noticed some things about myself and how I like to work professionally. So I started realizing that maybe the office environment wasn't the best place for me to work, with an open office plan and people constantly moving around and talking and coming up to me. I found myself distracted and unproductive, and I was finding it really hard to focus on tasks versus when I was working at home. I would, go into a small conference room or something like that when I really needed to focus on something, but I knew that was only really a temporary solution for that office environment. So at that point, I started looking for options that would possibly be hybrid, or maybe even a bigger type of firm that would have multiple office locations. I wasn't necessarily sure that I want to stay in Pittsburgh forever, and I'm still not sure I want to stay in Pittsburgh forever. So
you never know.
Right.
Or if you leave, most people just come back. It's usually how people move to Pittsburgh, is they're coming back for family. But
yeah. So yeah, I was looking for an office that had maybe some more locations so that if I did want to switch up my location, I could. And I was looking for something that had probably more of a hybrid setup. And so as I started looking, I actually didn't even think 100% remote firm existed. I didn't think it was out there because I wasn't really seeing any firms that were doing that. But in my search, I stumbled upon Ashley McGraw, and what I thought exactly did not exist was out there. Um, so they're a 100% remote firm. Mostly everyone is located in Syracuse. The majority of our employees are there. But just like I have the opportunity to work at home every day, they also have that opportunity too. There's no
Like
mandate.
requirement for them versus you. Like,
Nope.
yeah.
Everyone's on a level playing field. So that was really nice about the firm. And then they're also very flexible about my location. So I could be located anywhere. We have people mostly in the Northeast, but they're not very strict on my location. So that was a plus for me as well.
So how is adjusting? Did you go up to their office for onboarding and starting, or did they onboard you remotely?
They actually onboarded me remotely. I think I had about 6 months working before I had ever been to Syracuse. So I accepted the job without ever going there, which was a little weird. I did all of the interviews over Zoom and all of the onboarding over Zoom. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know when I started, it was right before the pandemic, but I had 1 week in Detroit and then came back to Pittsburgh. So, but we've had a lot of people just on board straight in Pittsburgh. We've had people on board remotely. So even hybrid settings, like everybody's doing it differently depending on where you're starting.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think I did start remotely onboarding, but now I believe people are in the office for probably like 3 days to a week when they first start just to get acclimated and do some things in person at first.
yeah. Now, how have you found office culture is always a big topic in terms of, we need people in the office because of our office culture and being together. How have you seen like the differences between working from 100% in an office to 100% remote? Have there been different challenges or things that McGraw's done very well in keeping you engaged versus what you've experienced at Hayes?
Yeah, I definitely think Ashley McGraw is very intentional and they're all in on the fact that they are a remote firm or offer the fully remote employees. Um, so I think it takes intentionality from the firm and a dedication to their firm culture, which I'm not sure every firm could make that transition so smoothly. Like I said, the people that are in Syracuse get the same opportunity as I do. So there's an equal playing field, and all of the, I guess, amenities or benefits that are offered to people that are in Syracuse are offered to me as well. So I definitely don't feel left out. So yeah, they definitely provide the same opportunities for the remote employees as they do the ones that are in person. We have multiple Teams channels that you can ask any sort of question you have, and there's always people available to answer questions from. So definitely an intentionality on their side for office culture.
Yeah. And how did you find them when you were doing your search? Were you just on LinkedIn looking at job postings, Glassdoor? How did you go about searching?
Yeah, I actually found them on Indeed and I was filtering by hybrid. I was kind of looking all over because I wasn't so
Because you
tied to the
can.
location
Yeah.
either. And I was specifically looking for a firm that specialized in K through 12. And that was another benefit of Ashley McGraw. K through 12 was something I primarily worked on before, and it just so happened that they worked on that too. So it was really the perfect fit.
Yeah. And before we jump into K through 12 conversations,
Mm-hmm.
um, I know COVID and like I'm more hybrid setting. I'm always advocating for those recent graduates to still find positions in an office,
Mm-hmm.
to be next to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And you had what, 5 years of experience before shifting to 100% remote?
Mm-hmm.
What is your perception for recent grads? If they are looking for a job, would you recommend a hybrid where they can be next to people? Or if they go a fully remote position, are there any tips you have for them starting their career to make sure that they're learning and not just kind of spinning their wheels at home.
Right. So something our firm specifically does is the first 6 months that we onboard someone, they are required to be in the office. And we kind of make a more conceited effort to have more, project architects and project managers in the office for them as a resource during that time too when we're onboarding someone. So that's something that we do in our office. But yes, I would recommend that someone start their career 100% remote. And I'm not sure I would necessarily have said that before I started working at a firm that did that. I don't know if I would have said it when I was working full time in the office. I've seen our recent graduates and just the output that they have, and I'm just continuously impressed by how they perform. So I definitely don't think it puts them at a disadvantage to others that are in the office. And I think more than ever, it's obvious that other industries are working remote and working in a different way now and more flexible. So I definitely think that the architecture industry needs to keep adapting to the future of work as well, just with the people that we interact with and the spaces that we design for other people too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the more I hear of firms that are more 100% remote, they have nobody locally with anybody else. It's really, if the firm is bought in, is the only way it works. If there's hesitancy, then there's always going to be this like question mark type atmosphere. But I knew actually just a few firms pre-COVID that were 100% remote. And so it's actually really interesting to see the number of fully remote positions available now for architects. And I think it leverages the economy too. If, projects are slowing down in certain areas, and if K through 12 slow down Pittsburgh and you got laid off, you could go find and be a hybrid employee. If it's really hot in, I don't know, California or Texas,
Right.
It opens up a lot of opportunities to work on projects across the country.
Right. And I definitely think for recent graduates specifically, it exposes them to more project types and a more diverse set of clients and coworkers as well. You're working with all different types of people and learning about all different types of things by having more diversity in your firm. So I think there's definitely an opportunity for that as well. I also think for recent graduates, it gets them into rooms that they wouldn't necessarily be in. I think when you're working remotely, it's really easy to send someone a virtual meeting link and say, like, hey, listen in on this while you're drafting in Revit or something. If you've never been to something like a school board meeting or a consultant coordination meeting or an owner meeting, they can sit in on those things and listen in and learn so that when it comes time for them to lead them, they're prepared and they know what to expect.
Yeah, definitely. Now, jumping into K through 12. So something I like talking about in my series is just what we do as architects and how different it can be depending on what area of specialty we decide to focus in or the project types. So you focusing on K through 12, what brought you to focusing on K through 12 work?
So definitely throughout some of my internships, I did two internships in Youngstown and Cleveland, which were close to Kent during the time when I was going to school. And there I got a big exposure to all different project types. And it was really when I was working at a firm in Cleveland called Then Design Architecture. They specifically focus on K through 12 that I really got interested in that project type. They do a lot of community engagement with the parents, teachers, students. So I really thought it was a really interesting process of how you get all of these opinions from all of these stakeholders to come together and create something that has such a long lasting impact as a school and the community around that. So that's where I initially got interested in that type of project. Like I said, again, at Hayes, that was primarily the types of projects I focused on. But it wasn't until Ashley McGraw that I really dialed down. It's the only project type that I work on now, and much larger scale projects. So it took me a little bit of time of experimenting with all different project types to really get there.
Yeah, because you said you were working on like water treatment plants and other little things along the way. So it's not like you've done K through 12 your entire career.
Right.
But
Yeah, bits and pieces here and there.
yeah, what do you enjoy most about that project type versus the other ones you've done?
Yeah, I definitely enjoy obviously the community engagement piece, but also the diversity. I feel like you never know what a district's going to need done. There's all different parts of a school, gymnasiums, cafeterias, libraries, natatoriums, all different types of things, all within a school. So I really like the diversity and the variety within it.
Yeah, and does Ashley McGraw just do schools locally up near Syracuse? Are you working on projects kind of in different regions that change those dynamics?
Yeah, so they work on projects primarily throughout the state of New York, so not necessarily in Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
One of my large projects is in Albany, which is about 2.5 hours from Syracuse, and then another project is about 30 minutes north of Syracuse. So, but we have things all over the place. Things near Rochester area, Albany, and up north, all over the place. So.
Yeah. What do you find is the biggest challenge with this project types?
So the biggest challenge I find with K through 12 projects is that a lot of our work is renovation work. So we need to find a way to phase the work efficiently. So a lot of our work will happen during the summer when the kids aren't in school, but during the school year, we have to phase the work in a way that construction can still keep progressing, but the kids can still get to the spaces and do the activities that they need to do. So a lot rides on the schedule, and if there are things like long lead time items or schedule delays, it has a really big ripple effect throughout the project and it getting complete.
Yeah, I know like my school system for K through 12, they were always doing different renovations and they would always bring out these trailers that people would have to go and take class like in a trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you guys have to figure out phasing with trailers or are you trying to focus more keeping them within their building?
Typically, I've seen that we're doing it within the building, so different spaces that they can use as a swing space. I've never used trailers on any of my projects. I think sometimes school districts don't want to use them or put their kids in trailers, but it is an option.
Yeah. I know it ages me a bit if nobody else is using trailers anymore and I've just missed the memo. That's just what I've experienced. But I've never had to actually go take class in a trailer. I did always look out and I was always in like the different elementary school or middle school that wasn't getting renovated and then they do it later. Um so with you being locally here in Pittsburgh, but your firm or out of town, are there any local organizations that have made an impact on you still feeling connected locally with people?
Yeah, so I'm definitely still involved in AIA Pittsburgh, the Young Architects Forum, and Women in Design in Pittsburgh. So those groups have been essential to me still feeling connected to the local architecture community. And something I'm actually participating in right now that is my favorite event that I do all year is the Palm Mentorship Group. So it's a program through AIA Pittsburgh that pairs about 5 professionals together that range from students all the way up to firm owners and principals. And you get to meet with them 3 times throughout the fall, leading up to the holidays. And I really like it because it's a smaller group of people that you get to know a lot better than, maybe a large networking event where you meet someone once and talk to them once and don't get to know them so well. So that's definitely the most impactful thing that I do every year, and I try not to miss it. I definitely feel like I have a support group after each of those meetings that I can lean on locally as a resource.
Yeah, I'm also doing Palm this year. We are not in the same group.
Also,
For anybody that doesn't have a Palm group, you can always try to reach out to the Young Architects Forum in your local AIA and starting one of those. I know during COVID, they went remote and did Palm through the entire AIA Pennsylvania. I don't know if you
yeah,
participated in that one.
yeah, I did. Did you?
Yeah, I Did I just do 1 year or two? Maybe I did two. And so it was nice to then talk to people out in Philadelphia and Harrisburg and connect with people in different areas of the state, because typically we just stay over on this side of the state. So
Right, I agree. It was my first time doing it this past spring, and I was with a couple people from Philadelphia and just one person from Pittsburgh. So I agree. It was great to get a different perspective from just a totally different market as well, too.
yeah, and they're generally bigger. And if you're not from Pennsylvania, we don't really keep track on what happens on the other side of the state. I know when I do work in Connecticut and they give the weather for the entire state, I'm blown away because we don't even get the weather in Erie. It's like, oh, nobody cares. This is our little corner.
Yeah, it's our bubble down in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, exactly. And then, do you have any advice for young professionals starting their career, whether they're looking to go 100% hybrid or if K through 12 sounds interesting to them?
Yeah, something I always say to young professionals or people just starting their career is to ask a lot of questions and know the why behind everything you are doing. So even if you're just picking up red lines or drawing a detail that someone else sketched for you, take the time to understand every line that you are drawing and what it represents, why things are noted the certain way they're noted, why you're picking the certain materials you are, and ask questions if you don't know why those decisions are being made. I think that's something that really accelerates your growth and will really develop you well professionally, when you know the why behind things. And I also remind people to not worrying about knowing the answers. When you're just starting your career, no one expects you to have all of the answers or know how to put together an entire drawing set when you just come out of school. Um, so I think what other professionals or older professionals will be more impressed by is your eagerness to learn and grow and ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, and on another note, I know you gave me your ARE story. So if people haven't checked out my website, I've been sharing at least one ARE story a week for a good chunk of 2023 now. And I know in your story, you talked about having an accountability buddy. Can you talk a little bit about how that helped you through your licensure process?
Yes, that helped me exponentially having a study buddy. So Michael Rosica is the person that runs the Young Architect website. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he
Yep.
does an ARE boot camp and he has an ARE Facebook group. So he was doing a mentorship matching through his Facebook group that I signed up to be in, and I got matched with two other ladies, one in North Carolina and one in Iowa. So I think it was initially supposed to be more of a mentorship group, but we all noticed that we were still in the process of taking the AREs or just starting. So we kind of just morphed it into a study group and started studying together. The woman in Iowa, she ended up passing all of her exams, and Marina is the woman that was in North Carolina, and us two were still left doing our exams. So we continued to study together, and we got very close by meeting every week. So it was just something that kept me accountable, and I knew that I was meeting with her every week, and I knew that we said we're going to read these certain chapters or do these certain questions, so that when we came together I was prepared to meet with her. I was actually talking about this with my Palm group last week, but I took the exams very soon after graduation. So I think I was a little naive and didn't have as much project experience with things like CA. So something that Marina really helped me with was understand the CA process. She was explaining things to me as simple as what an RFI is, what a submittal is, what
Mm-hmm.
they look like, what you need to look for when you're reviewing those things. So her experience definitely helped me a lot in the exam process, and having that person to bounce off of the real life experience with was the difference I think that made in helping me pass the exams.
Yeah, I know stories always help me. to like remember what's going on.
Mhm.
I know I had the Shefflin notes, I think, for contracts that at least made it so I wasn't falling asleep studying contracts.
Yeah.
But when you guys were studying, were you always studying the same exam? I know when I started my exam journey, I tried having a small group internally in my office, and it was, first exam, we're all studying for it, but then life happens to one person, they push it off, another person didn't pass, and then versus somebody else passing. So then we're in different stepping stones. How did that journey between like the pass fails and what exams you guys studied go?
Yeah, so Marina and I think it was actually the first 3 exams we took, we were taking them within the same week of each other. Um, and I think by about exam 4, we got off of track between fails and retakes and all of those things, but we still continued to study together and ask questions from practice tests together. So it was still helpful, even though we got off track. But at first, yes, we were taking them within the same week of each other, which was kind of nice to lean on someone if you fail or, you know, had some concepts that you weren't grasping that you had seen on the exam. Are there other resources that someone else used to study those concepts? So, yeah, it
Yeah,
was helpful.
definitely. And that's why I say accountability buddies or study partners are helpful regardless on
Mm-hmm.
if you're on track or not, because at least maybe you're not like going over those chapters like you did when you started, but at least it was somebody to bounce ideas off of or say like, okay, I still need to read 3 chapters by the time we sit down and hang out. And I guess you guys are more virtually in that sense anyway, because she was
Right.
in North Carolina.
Yep. And I've actually, to this day, I've never met her in person. We even after we passed our exams, we still continued to check in every so often. So it's kind of funny. I made a virtual friend on the internet that ended up being really cool.
It's as good as the guys meeting up with people they played video games with for years and then
Right.
get invited to their wedding. That's the stories I hear now. It's like, oh, meet them for the first time at their wedding. All right. Well, thank you, Kayla, so much for coming on and speaking with me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope you enjoyed our discussion today. Check out the description below for any resources, links, and contact information we discussed. Did you like the conversation today? Is there something you'd like to know more about or a topic I should cover? Leave me a comment below and I will see what I can do to best answer your questions. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. It does really help others be able to find this resource to have larger conversations. So leave me a comment and subscribe. I really appreciate your support.